So today is February 3rd, and it's the third day of Black History Month. Um, I'm reading an article. I just read an article from Veg News. Every day I follow up on the latest headlines from vegnews.com. And today they talked about five different black activists that are basically activists for veganism, among rights and whatnot for people of color, so to speak, black people. Um, and, reading through some of these, there were five activists in this particular article, and reading through some of them and what they're doing, it gives me a sense of there's a certain injustice that's going on by using certain words, in my opinion. Some of the words that are used are, some of the terms that are used is the term people of color. Um, Also, they talk about like one woman, for instance, is uh, helping to redistribute food that is not used, like food that might be discarded that can be eaten, to impoverished communities. And to some degree, I think that's a great thing. I don't think it's always a great thing. Another thing she does is she has yoga classes, and she also helps. She also has these so-called healing groups for women. Now that right there, like, people talk about othering, to other someone or making someone the other. Um, I just read about one guy who was at school, and he's a black man, and he's gay, and he was walking along with his friend at school at university in his freshman year, arm in arm with his black partner, and he was called faggot, 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 and after a pause, someone started calling him nigger, calling them nigger, and saying ostensibly nigger, nigger, nigger. And now he wants to run for the New York Senate, and he wants to serve the interests of uh, animals, you know, and the going taking down the fur industry and taking down the factory farming industry. And I think it's great. And what he says is basically that if you've ever been made to feel less than, or if you've ever been made to feel like you are the other, if you've ever been othered, then you will understand the importance of this. We need more people with the vegan cause to be in positions of power. And this whole othering concept, I mean, it's an interesting concept that I'm kind of looking at and working through. Um, you know, in some instances, discrimination is just a fact of life. I can discriminate whether to eat a rock or a plum, you know? I think it's better to not eat the rock. I mean, we discriminate all the time. We tell the difference between one thing and another thing. There's a difference. There are differences. Um, the issue, of course, is when we don't treat people on the same playing field. But at the same time, you do have to put people in a different playing field when it comes to things like the level of love that someone has. If someone is willing to harass, cajole, manipulate, steal, lie in order to get what they want, then that person must, if you wish to be loving, you must place them in a different playing field than someone who has decided to be loving. That's important and necessary, in my opinion. Um, but with regards to, people of one race as opposed to people of a different race, of course, we need to treat people equally. The truth is that, we are all children of God. We are all brothers and sisters. We're all siblings under our parent God. And so treating someone differently just by virtue of, their skin color is wrong. But I am concerned about using the term people of color and being a little flagrant about the use of the term other, in the sense of othering. Um, and why am I so concerned? Um, I don't think there's a monolith of white people out there who say, well, everyone that is not part of my race, those people are people of color. Am I not a person of color as a white person? Is white not a color? What about Asians who sometimes have a paler complexion, might have a little bit more of a yellow tinge in their skin tone when compared to myself? Sometimes sometimes white people are paler. If you look at Irish people, for instance, this is very. These topics and these issues can be very. Uh, they're very combustible issues. Let's put it that way. And I think it's important to be aligned and know what the truth is with regards to these things. Um, Understanding the truth that we're all children of God. Um, if there is racism out there, if there is violations of love because of uh, how someone's perspective is with regards to someone of a different, skin tone, or someone of a different ethnicity, or someone with a different background, or someone of a different gender or sexual orientation, you know, and even with sexual orientation, like, the truth is that there are homosexuals and there are heterosexuals. That's it. There are no, transgenderism is a psychosis. That's very difficult for many people to hear, but that's the truth. People who consider themselves to be of a different gender than what they are, or a different sex to what they are, transsexualism, they're sick. That's an aberration, and the same goes for bisexuality. You aren't bisexual. You're either homosexual or heterosexual. Your soulmate is either male or female, and that's just the way it is. So it's incumbent upon you to find out what your actual orientation is. Um, so these are combustible topics, but I find myself getting a little triggered, which is the reason why I'm making this video, when it comes to um, creating, women's only healing groups, and creating, black safe spaces, and saying that I'm part of a black organization. Am I, as a white man, allowed to make a white organization? In this day and age, I would be pummeled. I would not physically, but my career would be destroyed, and I would be brought. I would be, you know, verbally attacked heavily, and some people would ensure to take me down and prevent me from any endeavor. That doesn't mean that I can't pursue a certain endeavor or be successful in some venture. It's only my own fear that keeps me from being successful, and going with my fear as opposed to going with my loving desires. But I do see this conflict here where, we're treating women with more respect, and we're giving more to women than we are men. You're not allowed to have, men's groups aren't allowed. That's sexism. If you have a men's group, then you're sexist. You're a chauvinist. You're part of the male patriarchy. If you have a white group, any kind of white group, let's say a white healing group, you're a white supremacist. And if that's true, then you can't have a black group. You can't say that, this is the group that I'm holding, and only people of my race are allowed to come to this group. This is I went to this church once and I was looking for a friend. And at this particular service, this was in Fargo, North Dakota, they had a women's night, and only women were allowed to attend this church. There were a great number of women that were in the church attending this particular service. And the only men there were a smattering of two or three that were there as bodyguards. And when I went inside looking for a friend of mine, I also had to go to pick up a passenger, but I knew that my friend was also at that event, and I was looking for her. When I went inside to look for her, a security guard ushered me out. Somewhat, I mean, it's not that he was being nasty, he was doing his job, but the treatment itself, the fact that I was, effectively othered, or whatever term you want to use, it made me feel terrible. And so should we laud these groups just because of disenfranchisement? Should I laud in a group or an organization that is trying to empower black people, but also at the self same time excluding people of my race, people of the Asian race, people from the Indian race, people of Native American origin or Russian origin or what have you? I can't do that. It's not loving to do that. I'm not going to ever support a group that says blacks only, a group that says whites only, a group that says women only, a group that says men only. I can't do that. I might support certain ends that they have and certain parts of, certain things that they're trying to do. But, the idea of a women's only healing group, I mean, it just flies in the face of rational, sense or whatever. It's not loving. It's just not loving. Now, I would point out the good things, and I'd also point that out. If there was a group that, included certain people and excluded others, by virtue of, again, sex or race or ethnicity or cultural background or orientation, then I would have to be opposed to that. I am morally opposed to that. The only difference is that, you're not going to have, if you have a group of people who are professional in a field, so let's say you want to engineer a new toaster, you're going to fill the room with engineers. You're not going to fill the room with half engineers and half circus performers. The circus performers would prevent the mission from being accomplished. Having circus performers in a room full of engineers, that would distract from the goal. And it's not that they're purposefully, negative. It's just that it's a cross purpose. It's a different purpose that the circus performers have. Circus performers want to work in a circus and perform and present their art and their culture, and that's a good thing. And also with regards to love and someone's moral aptitude, you might say, you might have people of a certain moral aptitude who also share the same interest, such as engineering a new toaster, fill the same room, and you would exclude people who are unloving, who would specifically curtail the stated mission. You would exclude those people, and that is the loving thing to do. But what you wouldn't do is you wouldn't exclude people by virtue of their background, their race, their ethnicity, their sexual orientation. You would only exclude people based on interest, ability, and love aptitude, or their development of love. I feel very strongly about this, which is why I want to say this. And it took me a little while to make all my points. I hope that you remained with me. But if you didn't, I understand. These are very triggering, combustible issues, as I've said. I'm a little satisfied that I kind of got to where I wanted to get to. I guess I would also say that, cultural, you might want to exclude someone to some degree because someone of a different culture might not be able to um, bring the same mystique or you know beauty that is unique to a culture. Um, but that's debatable itself. Um, and I would also say that if someone is not moral, you know, or if someone is not, of a particular ability, or they're not of the same interest, they don't have the same interest. Like, again, going back to the toaster example, someone might not be a fully fledged engineer, but they might be interested in somewhat in engineering. Someone might not be fully moral, but they might be interested in becoming moral. So you would actually include those people because you see their potential and their desire. But you might not give them the same platform or the same tools because of their lower development. I think people can understand what I'm saying if they really, take a moment to think about it. I'm not for exclusion. Like, in some respects, I'm for exclusion and inclusion, and in some respects, I'm not. And I think it's very important that we shift the discussion and the education about this. Sometimes it's good to exclude. When Jesus kicks people out of his meetings, it's because he's told them time and again what they're doing, and they are choosing ignorance. They're choosing to be intentionally rebellious. And so, at a certain point, in order for the health and welfare and the ultimately the education of the people that are interested in learning, he kicks out the people that are, intentionally rebellious. And I think that's great. You know, I was amazed when he was doing that, and I'm rewatching some of the videos where, I think it's the 2018 assistance groups, or was it 16? I don't know, but he finally decided to do that. He and Mary made that decision, and it's beautiful. It's amazing. It's such a these little things. They're such a big deal, and I think Jesus understands that. There might not be a lot of subscribers to the Divine Truth YouTube channel. There might not be a lot of people who know about Jesus or are attempting to, follow what he's teaching or listen to, these beautiful principles. But he knows that what he's doing is important. He knows that God understands what he's doing. He sees the impact of little loving things, and that really is impressing upon me and inspiring. And I really do hope that we can change the focus to say it's not I'm not going to exclude people by virtue of background, ethnicity. When I say background, it's more like, ethnic background. Yeah, ethnicity, race, orientation, or sex. I will only exclude people, and this is my conclusion to this video, based on moral aptitude or development, level of interest, and ability. And that makes sense, and that's loving, I believe. So I thought I'd state my opinion and share, and thanks for watching.